History is full of countries you've heard of. Rome, the Inca Empire, even Paraguay. But what about the ones not even the locals of its former lands remember? Today we're diving into 5 forgotten countries so obscure they make the great state of Ulm look mainstream. And I promise you've never heard of the last one. Now tell me, what is this country? Maybe medieval Lithuania? Not quite, but close. Maybe Belarus? You're nearly there. It's neither Lithuania nor Belarus, it's the Socialist Soviet Republic of Lithuania and Belarusia, or Litbel for short. It was established on February 27, 1919 during the Russian Civil War, which coincided with the Polish-Soviet War and Lithuanian-Soviet War. It merged 2 prior Soviet republics. I don't think I need to mention which ones. The Soviet Union didn't exist quite yet. Instead, Soviet Russia existed and it liked establishing sister republics, including the Far Eastern Republic. Bet you never heard of that one either. But that one was basically just made as a buffer state against Japan, which was doing the whole going north thing to occupy Ottoman Syria, but that wasn't cool yet, so the Japanese pulled out when the Russian Civil War was coming to an end. So back to countries with a population density higher than 2 people per square kilometer. That's pretty generous, it was actually 1.8421 people per square kilometer. Litbel was a Soviet puppet state, but one with damn fine looking borders. And we nearly could have had Greater Litbel, but Soviet Russia transferred some Belarusian governorates to itself, what made Soviet Lithuania and Belarusia unify. It was one of the weird countries with 2 capitals, both Vilnius and Minsk. Although we all know this state didn't survive because Poland won the Polish-Soviet War and occupied most of Litbel. So let's not focus on external affairs but rather internal affairs. How binational was this binational state actually? The idea behind Litbel, of course, was overcoming nationalism and having a strong buffer between Russia and Poland until Poland could be defeated to connect the Bolsheviks to the revolutions in Germany and Hungary. Now guess who led the meeting for the establishment of Litbel? A Lithuanian, B a Belarusian, or C a Russian. All wrong, it was D, a Pole, but the soon-to-be government was headed by a Lithuanian. Does this mean we could have had a communist Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth? That sure would have been swell. Not that any of this mattered because the true leaders lived in Moscow. Sadly, I can't tell you more except one thing, the official languages. There were quite a few, which I find awesome as a language enjoyer. The official languages were Belarusian, Lithuanian, Russian, of course, Polish, and Yiddish. Pretty cool, but Litbel sadly was born in the middle of a war. Several actually, so there's not much domestic to tell. Obscurity score 9 out of 10. I want this one back. You might know the next country if you're Chilean, Argentinian, or really into weird French dudes. It's the Kingdom of Araucania and Patagonia, led by this normal looking Frenchman called Aurélien Anton de Tournant. Let me ask you, what do you do after reading a good book? Discuss it with fellow bookworms, tweet about it, maybe write a short continuation, some toxic yuri or yaoi of the characters. Tournant, after reading La Araucana, which is a 16th century Spanish account of the conquest of Chile, decided, fuck it, I'll become the king of Araucania. So he moved to Chile, spending 2 years in Valparaiso and Santiago, before moving to Biobío 2 years later. There he met some Mapuche tribal leaders and the mad did actually convince them to make him king of Araucania, where he promised them French arms and support on their struggle against Chilean colonialism. So they elected him Great Toki, the chieftain of chieftains, ruler of all Mapuche. Now king of Araucania and Old Patagonia, he proclaimed himself through a decree on November 17, 1860, and another one on the 20th of the same month. We now got a Mapuche state. Very epic. Here a map of it again. Very nice. And now here a map of territory he actually controlled. Honestly, this country kind of makes me sad. Imagine, you are Mapuche. You just want to continue your way of life, your culture. But those damn Chileans keep taking more and more of your land, treating you like a lesser human for being a non-European barbarian. Then some French dude promises to fix all of that, so out of desperation, you make him the supreme chieftain of your people. To his credit, he made a constitution, sent it to a Chilean newspaper, tried to contact the government of Chile, but was ghosted. Contact the French consul, but was declared insane by him. He may have made false promises, but at least he tried. Chile then went on to occupy Araucania, capturing Tournant on January 5, 1862, declaring him insane on September 2nd, and expelling him to France on October 28, 1862. But this mad lad did not give up. He returned in 1869, which surprised his former subjects because they were told by Chilean forces that he was executed. Attempt 2. A bounty was put on his head, but his subjects offended him. He had no money, so he went back to France. Don't ask me how he did that without money. He sought a bride to conceive an heir, but he had about as much of les riches as I do. This man though, he never gives up. He tried again in 1874, this time with actual weapons and ammunition. Wow. But if you look at the world map, you see the Mapuche still don't have their own country. That's because he was banned from Chile, so he tried to land in Argentina, but was instantly deported. 4th time's the charm. Can you guess what stopped him this time in 1876? He was robbed and handed over to Chilean authorities. Additionally, he needed an operation due to illness. The rest of his 2 years to continue life, he lived in France and died in poverty, never giving up on his dream to be king of Araucania and Patagonia. He died on September 17, 1878, age 53. So kids, what do we learn? Always give up on your dreams. They will never work. Though I wonder, would he have tried a 5th time if he hadn't died? Would he maybe have succeeded? Would the Mapuche have been spared from Chile's colonization of the land and their treatment as second-class citizens, if not third-class? We may never know, but the answer is probably no. Obscurity score 7 out of 10. Ridiculous score 12 out of 10. The world may actually be a better place with this one. Man, this made me sad. How about the same thing in East Turkestan, except by a wood?
British?
A pickle manufacturer named Khalid Sheldrake, but he was born Bertram William Sheldrake, but changed his name after converting to Islam in 1903. Let's travel to China real quick. It had a warlord era because some general made himself emperor of China, everyone hated that, and China descended into a civil war trying to fill the power vacuum. A bit, but not too much more on that in this video here. Now, not all warlords wanted to unify China under their name. Some wanted independence, like the first East Turkestan Republic, but nobody recognized them. To gain some legitimacy, they asked Sheldrake to become their overlord. Sure, he was British, but he was a pickle manufacturer, not a royal or any kind of politician. I don't quite get it. He arrived in Beijing in May 1934. There, an Eastern Turkestani delegation offered him to be head of state as His Majesty King Khalid of Islamestan, which he accepted. Some kings are crowned in grand palaces or glamorous cathedrals. He accepted a title in a hotel. That's almost as bad as Mark Antony offering Caesar a crown on a festival while naked. Bet you didn't know that part. I would make a joke about Sheldrake, but I think British newspaper beat me to that, calling him the Pickle King of Tartary. Now he tried to make it to East Turkestan, but couldn't, cause before he could make it, the warlord Shangshi Side retook the area for China. Sheldrake fled to British India. Well, at least everything worked out for the Uyghurs in the end. Obscurity score 100 out of 10, ridiculous score 13 out of 10. The next country you definitely haven't heard of, Belgium. No, this isn't a joke, I actually mean Belgium. Well, the beta release. It was in 1789, the Brabant Revolution broke out in the Austrian Netherlands. Well, mostly Brabant, because fuck Austria. It was because Emperor Joseph II wanted to reform his realm to be more centralized and anti-clerical, the dream of every Holy Roman Emperor. But that violates some medieval charters of provincial and local liberties. God, Belgians are such crybabies. No, you can't revoke our liberties. No, you can't just invade us to bypass the Maginot Line. Twice. No, we can't take down status of King Leopold II who killed more people in the Congo genocide than Jews were killed during the Holocaust. Because he built some cool buildings for the genocide's profits. Imagine if Germany and Austria had Hitler's statues because of the Autobahn, or because he gave Jewish property to German citizens. Not that the Nazis built the Autobahn. They expanded it for their tanks. Okay, now that I got my hate for Belgium out of my system, during the Brabant Revolution, the United Belgium States were formed. Was formed? Doesn't matter, because it lasted for less than a year. On January 11th, 1790, the Confederate Republic was formed, and on December 2nd, 1790, Brussels fell. But the Austrians wasted their time because the French invaded in 1794. Score 0 out of 2 German invasion. Now our last state. I bet you have never heard of this one. Comment if I'm wrong. It's the Kingdom of Mittag. Now, did you know that before the Chinese ever set foot in Taiwan, it was a country unifying a not too shabby chunk of the island, though not a large one either. Yet, we're in Taiwan, but that name sounds suspiciously Dutch. And that's because it is. It means afternoon. I prefer Kingdom of Dadu though. It was a tribal confederation because, fun fact, Taiwan was originally Austronesian until stuff happened and now less than 3% of Taiwan is indigenous. I explain the political history in this video, but still have to make a video on how China made Taiwan majority Chinese. That's coming someday. It is unknown when the confederation was founded and also unknown when it was dissolved, sometime around the 17th or 18th century. According to the Dutch, it had around 11 provinces. Let me read out a Scottish report from the 1640s. A third dominion belongs to a king of Mittag and lays against the northeast of Taiwan. Okay, enough of that horrendous X. Southward of the river Peshentia. This prince has 17 towns that obey him, the largest being called Mittag. It is also chief seat and place of residence. Sada, Theodor, Deredonacel, and Goema are 4 other of his eminent towns, the last name being a handsome palace situated on a plain 5 miles from Peshentia, whereas the others are built on hills. The king of Mittag had formerly 27 towns under his jurisdiction, but 10 of them flew off his yoke. He keeps up no great state and has only 1 or 2 attendants accompanying him when going abroad. He would never suffer any Christians to dwell in his dominions, allowing them only to travel through it. That's all the infos on it sadly, other than its end. In 1645 the Dutch wanted to take over Middach after kicking off the Spanish in northern Taiwan and successfully made Middach subservient from 1646 to 1649, dividing the land in 6 provinces and leasing land to Chinese farmers. The king died, his nephew became the new king, and I cannot tell you what happened between that and the Dutch being yeeted from Taiwan by former Chinese government being in Taiwan in 1662. More on that in the aforementioned video. This kingdom of Tungning, a Ming loyalist state you probably never heard of either, exploited the area to feed its armies, which was detrimental to the indigenous population. Then the king came in 1683. In 1731 an indigenous rebellion broke out, was crushed, and around this time Middach seems to have ceased to exist. So now you know when someone asks, is Taiwan China or independent, you know what to answer. Good afternoon. This one gets an obscurity score of 10 out of 10 and a base score of 8 out of 10. Would be nice if Taiwan had an Austronesian Renaissance. Now that was it. How many of these 5 countries plus Tungning and the Far Eastern Republic did you know? And which one's trip we bring back? I'm a Litbel connoisseur, of course. If you're interested in forgotten countries, how about checking out this iceberg on the shortest lived empires? It's only the first 2 layers, but some of the entries might be new to you. If you want a part 2, let me know in the comments. I barely scratched the surface of forgotten countries. Okay, see you on the next one. Or last one if you want to watch another video.